Hey, welcome back here in the Caden's Weather Center. Right now, today is June 11th, 2025. We're going to pay attention here to the tropics, as you've seen by the thumbnail. We're going to be talking about the tropics here today. We're going to be seeing what are we going to be expecting here maybe throughout June. What are we going to be expecting over here in the next few weeks? We're going to go over some models. We're going to see what we could be expecting. We're going to talk about if we could expect anything or not. Right now, we know the Eastern Pacific is something that is hot right now and that we're seeing currently some multiple storms, kind of developing and also already continuing on, as they've had 3 storms so far and now a red area of interest at this time. We're going to talk about that a little bit as well, but we're mostly going to be talking about the Atlantic and when we could possibly see our first storm, but it might not even be this month. So we're going to hop right into it as we have a lot to talk about. But we're gonna make our first video here on the tropics here on the 2025 hurricane season. So let's take a look right now at the weather across the United States. We can see some scattered rain showers kind of going on over here with some severe storms. You can see over here in the Idaho area, that's some scattered showers, thunderstorms right now. Flooding threat is going to be happening over here in the eastern part of Texas. Heading into the western part of Louisiana and Arkansas as well. And then, you have some of these severe storms also over here in Minneapolis region. But then we also have these scattered showers and thunderstorms kind of going down in the southeast, stretching from North Carolina all the way to the Florida Panhandle. And then the Florida Peninsula has had a couple severe thunderstorm warnings as well today. And we're going to keep an eye on that very, very closely, as those sea breeze thunderstorms are going to start to ramp up as we head into this evening. But let's take a look at right now here at the Eastern Pacific side. This is the satellite here for the Eastern Pacific. You can clearly see possibly, we're going to be having that area of interest that's kind of located in this general area right over here. This will be making its way off over here to the northwest here over the next couple of days. Has a high chance of development in the next 7 days. We probably will be seeing a storm out of that. We've seen 3 storms already, and we'll take a look at those, currently here by the National Hurricane Center. You can clearly see Cosme right now is now a dissipated storm here. That's going to be continuing kind of just to hang out, but it's a dissipated storm, so not much, and that might be that's the last advisory according to the National Hurricane Center that they'll be issuing. Then you have this area of interest down here that is bringing, some 90% chance for 7 days of the development here, is its area of disorganized showers, thunderstorms. Invest 93 here, and we're keeping an eye on that one. Now, we'll take a look at some of the models possibly and see if it's going to impact anyone, but I don't necessarily think this one's going to impact anyone. Maybe possibly down the road could bring a little bit of rainfall over here to the western coast of Mexico, so could cause some mudslides, but we'll keep an eye on that very, very closely as well. And then we have obviously another area of development chance here, 20% chance here, right here, just off the coast of Central America, and that is due to these tropical waves that keep coming from the Atlantic. That is what's bringing these systems right here, and we'll talk about that obviously when we get to the Atlantic side. But let's talk about the Atlantic side here. As you can see, only June 11th, so once again, it's only been 11 days into the Atlantic hurricane season, but you can see no tropical cyclone activity is expected here during the next 7 days. We're not going to be anticipating anything. We probably won't be anticipating anything really for pretty much majority of June here, and you kind of can see that here in the National Hurricane Center's, or the NOAA's tropical hazards outlook. Nothing to see right here. We can see kind of in this main area where we see storms start to form in June, nothing currently active, and maybe something right here, but that's very, very low chances of probability here of a tropical cyclone forming in that area. And you can obviously see the Eastern Pacific is just popping off there. But then, down here, June 25th to July 1st, we're not seeing anything in our main area for these early months of hurricane season to form. So that's something that we're going to be, obviously keeping an eye on and, making sure that we're looking at this regularly so we can see if there is going to be any updates to this. Now, once again, just like we were saying, for June, this is the main area of development region on kind of where we see the biggest of development in June. Obviously no major hurricanes or anything like that, but you can see a number of named storms per 100 years in this June area, 10 to 29 in the blue right there. They start kind of down here in the Western Caribbean, and then even in parts of the Southern Gulf, kind of head up into the Gulf Coast here. You can see Florida and the Carolinas, really a big impact there, as well as New Orleans and Houston. Really the whole Gulf Coast for June usually gets at least maybe something. If something forms, that's kind of the general area that these storms go through. Taking a look at the IR satellite here for the Atlantic side, you can currently see not too much going on. We do have some tropical waves down here, but a lot more south than what we can see, kind of in the more activity range of August, September. And that's one of actually the biggest reasons on why some of these storms are not forming, or these tropical waves are not getting any organized or anything like that. Obviously, we're still early into the season, but we're not seeing any tropical waves that we need to pay attention to just because of how south and low they are. Usually, we see some of these storms, these tropical waves kind of come on the northern part here and kind of push out over here near the Cape Verde Islands, and we could see that, and that's what gives it a little bit more energy and what it needs to form here into a tropical wave, and then goes into a tropical cyclone. But these are, you can see it's very clear in this area. So as you can see, no tropical waves are going through that. So they're a lot more south at this time of year, and that's the reason why we're not seeing anything too much with that. Now it's kind of normal depending, on the time of year. It's usually kind of normal. But yeah, so most of these storms are, most of the tropical waves are staying more to the south. That's a reason why they are not having any good chances of development at this time. Very clear area over here, just off the coast of Western Africa, as well as we have that high pressure that's kind of sitting over here over the main Atlantic region, the Bermuda High. That's going to be causing a lot of different steering events this season. That's why we could be seeing a lot more storms that possibly could go out to the ocean, or maybe even go a little bit more off to the westward motion. We're going to have to see depending on what that is in the future, but obviously I can't make any big predictions on that as well. But taking a look at this, the Caribbean still very, very quiet here, as well as the Gulf of Mexico. Very, very quiet in this general area, which is, kind of normal, but not normal at the same time. We see, some stuff going on down here to the south. And once again, just like we were talking about, you see these tropical waves here. They eventually make their way off down here to the south, and then they make their way into the Eastern Pacific. And then the Eastern Pacific obviously starts off a lot more warmer, a lot more, environmental, conditions are a lot more favorable for it. And that's why we see the Atlantic start a little later than the Eastern Pacific. Especially that's why the hurricane season for the Eastern Pacific is May 15th, but then you have the Atlantic that's June 1st. So let's talk about what we're looking at currently. Another reason why we don't see any storms forming. Well, you can clearly see, if you look clearly at this kind of general look here of the satellite, you see this kind of brownish type color here, this tannish color. That is called Saharan dust. That comes off every year off of Africa here, and that makes its way over the Atlantic. And we've already seen some kind of making its way over here to the southeast United States. Gone now, but not too strong there. And that's another reason why the hurricanes need, or tropical development needs moist air. They don't need the dry air, that won't help them form. They need a moist air, and they need to get out of that dry air. And that's just a reason why we don't have major activity going on, especially through the early months, because we see this every year where the Saharan dust comes off of Africa. So that's another reason why right now the hurricane season is probably going to be very, very quiet here for the next month here. We might not even see one storm here in the month of June. But let's take a look at the shear. The wind shear also pretty average for what it's supposed to be at this time of year as well. This is pretty average here. But you can clearly see a lot of wind shear over here in the north, in the Atlantic, and that's increasing shear too. So it's just continuing to kind of grow, and it's just, it's just normal for the hurricane season to start off like this, where there's a lot of shear, and that's why we don't have a lot of tropical systems. But the Gulf, though, having a little bit more of a decreasing shear, is going to, go down a little bit here. But most likely will be increasing as we go on throughout the rest, of the end of the month here. Most likely will be increasing once again. Now, later in the hurricane season, we'll obviously see this change a very, very dramatic amount. Taking a look at this, though, this is something that we look at every year. This is from 1944 to 2020. This kind of gives us a general idea on what are we looking at, what's the time frame. Obviously, our main part of the hurricane season, you can see, stretches really from August 1st even into November here. That's our main area here. These couple months, these 3 months mainly are the biggest months of tropical development of major hurricanes and hurricanes that really form, and that's the general area and time frame on when those big storms start, to get pretty serious to watch at that time. We just started June, so we're about just in this region right over here. So obviously we're in very short of a spot. We haven't had any storms yet, but we'll definitely see. We have all of this still going to be coming up here for July until we start heading into the busier active part of the season here. But you can see where we're at currently right now, not much expected to go on, which is very, very normal. But let's take a look at the sea surface temperature anomalies. So you could take a look at this. All of this orange right here and red, that is above average hurricane temperature, or above average sea surface temperatures for hurricanes to develop. this is kind of what we look at throughout all of hurricane season. Now, this doesn't mean that there's going to be a hurricane at this time or there's going to be something that forms. No, that means what's going to happen. It's just giving us kind of a general idea. At this time of year, from 1981 to 2010, we can see that the waters in these orange and red areas are above average on where they're supposed to be after, past history. These are in different, they're just warmer than average. Then you take a look at the MDR, which is the Atlantic, the main development region, is blue, below average from where it's supposed to be from the past history as well. So very below average over here with that. Now you take a look at the current sea surface temperatures. Obviously, we're still early in the season. We're going to see some of these temperatures really start to change here eventually, especially the ones over here on the more MDR region. As we just saw those tropical waves going more to a southern motion here, this is the area where they most likely will be coming off later on in the season. That's when they usually do, is the west coast of Africa instead of more of the southwest coast of Africa, and kind of go around this area. We'll see a little bit more of the developments in that area, of warmer temperatures. That's what's going to cause that development. But that's what we're saying. The warmer temperatures will start to come probably later on in the hurricane season, which is completely normal. But getting back to what I was saying, we could see here in this general area right here, this is kind of where we're seeing those higher temperatures. Obviously, really over here in the Gulf Coast, we're definitely seeing some pretty high temperatures, and that's why we saw with that, look above average at this time of year. Caribbean a little bit more, on the below average here time, but something to still pay attention to. Let's take a look at the GFS model run. We could see not much going on with the GFS. The GFS has been something. Here is maybe a possible tropical development there according to the GFS, heading into the southern part of Texas here, has maybe a tropical storm there, and then mostly just quiet. And you can see that high pressure though. You can see that big high pressure. That's going to be keeping a lot of stuff not going on. And even if this was later in the hurricane season, these storms will move off to the west compared to this high pressure right there. So we're going to keep an eye out, obviously, on that. Taking a look at the Euro model, this Euro model has not been bringing up anything. We could see nothing is going to, really happen. Maybe, those tropical waves continue to move off into the Eastern Pacific, but nothing for the Atlantic side according to the Euro model. Taking a look at the Euro ensembles, same thing, not going to be seeing much here. And even if we go to the 00Z, we can see not much going to be going on with that. Taking a look at the GFS ensembles for the 12Z, not much going to be going on either, and that's kind of what we're going to be looking at over here throughout the next couple of weeks. We're not going to be seeing much going on, but that's that's kind of some of the reasons why the Atlantic is super quiet at this time. But obviously no one's going to be expecting any big storms here in June or July, so I mean, it's just like that, and that's just how it's going to be, unless it's another Beryl from last season, Hurricane Beryl. But thank you guys so much for watching. I do want to say thank you guys so much for 100 subscribers here on this YouTube channel. So glad that you guys can be able to be there for me and making, this just a dream and a reality for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for, tuning into some of these live streams as well that I do, and just watching some of these videos that I do with the weather updates. I love doing weather updates for everyone, and I just thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for 100 subscribers. It's a pretty big milestone after, takes a while here, but, I can't wait to grow with you guys even more. So thank you guys so much for that. But if you guys did like the video, make sure to leave a like. Also, check out my description. Follow me on X. I post frequent updates and weather information there every day, as well as follow me on the new Discord. Join the new Discord. It's down in my description down below, and I hope that you guys, if you guys like talking about weather, I hope that you guys will join that. And I thank you guys so much for tuning in today. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there, and I hope you guys all have a great rest of your day, and bye-bye.